Welcome to the second episode of Turning Points, GCERF's first podcast series on the rehabilitation and reintegration of returnees from northeast Syria. My name is El-Wali. I work on Tunisia, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen portfolios at the Global Community Engagement and Resilience Fund. In our last episode, we set the scene. We heard about the thousands of women and children in displacement camps in northeast Syria. We heard about the conditions inside those camps, the evidence that rehabilitation and reintegration works, and the question that runs through all of it: can we afford not to act? Today, we go one step further. We go inside the moment before someone leaves. What has to happen, psychologically, legally, practically, before a single family can begin the journey home? And what does that process look like on the ground? I am joined today by two guests who bring rich insights from their work in the camps. Mr. Saadou, GCERF's National Advisor for Syria, and Mrs. Jeyana Ahmad, Program Manager at Salam for Hope Foundation, GCERF's implementing civil society partner in Syria. She does this work every day with the families. Welcome, the both of you. Kim, I want to start this episode at a very specific moment, the moment before someone leaves. What is pre-departure preparation, and why does it matter?
Hello Muna, and thank you for having me here. When we talk about pre-departure support, we are not just talking about the final logistical steps before someone leaves a camp. In reality, it's a structured and multi-layered process that begins well before the actual departure moment. Pre-departure preparation is about helping people to make one of the most significant transitions of their lives after years of uncertainty into a new phase that requires independence, resilience, and adaptation.
And for families who have spent years in the camps, the shift to independence and adaptation is enormous. So the preparation must be holistic, right?
This preparation works across several dimensions simultaneously. The first one is psychologically. It's about helping people process the idea of leaving, managing expectation, reducing anxiety about the unknown. And the second one is socially. It's about rebuilding confidence and preparing them to reconnect with the communities outside the camp. And the last one is practically and legally. It involves ensuring that documentation, family unity, and basic plans for return are in place. Without this kind of preparation, reintegration efforts can easily fail. Pre-departure support is the bridge. It connects the experience of living in a camp with the realities of life after return, ensuring that the transition is as safe, dignified, and sustainable as possible.
A bridge. That's a powerful way to put it. Jeyana, you are one of the people building the bridge day by day. Walk us through what that looks like in practice.
Thank you, Muna. At Salam for Hope, we look at the transition of a camp not just as a physical move, but as a journey of reclaiming dignity. We work through community centers, a single space where a family can access everything they need: psychological support, legal support, vocational training, case management, and community dialogue. The idea is that no family should have to navigate 5 different organizations with 5 different systems to get the help they need. At the center of all, it is case management. A trained case worker sits with a family, understands their specific situation, their trauma, legal status, and risks, and stay with them. Without it, the most vulnerable people, including survivors of violence, children without parents, families without documentation, can fall through the cracks of a complex system very easily.
So a caseworker is assigned to them. What exactly happens after that, especially in the final month before their departure?
Here's what the final month before departure actually looks like. We conduct what we call a final case review. We look at the legal and practical dimensions. Does the family have their documents? Birth certificate, ID cards? If not, we coordinate immediately with legal aid partner to close that gap, because no one leaves without their documentation if we can help it. We also map out what awaits them at their destination. which local authorities and NGOs they can turn to. And through a formal transfer of care process, we hand over their files to the support system on the other side, so that their care is unbroken the moment they cross the camp boundary. At the 2-week mark, we run specialized sessions on family separation risks. Allow me to explain what it means to our listeners. When a family moves from the controlled environment of a camp into a fluid transitional situation, the risk of getting separated is real. We teach parents and children practical mitigation strategies, establishing meeting points, making sure children can memorize key contact information or carry identification cards in their pockets, teaching them what to do if they lose sight of each other during the move. It's about giving them a safety plan for the journey itself.
How do you help children process all of this?
For the children, we hold closure sessions in our psychological support centers. It's vital that they have the chance to say goodbye and to process the move so that it feels like a step forward, not just another displacement. For the parents, we provide orientation kids contact points for protection services, gender-based violence support, and local coordination platforms in their new area. We make sure they know their rights and how to navigate the system they are stepping into. And on the day they leave, we oversee what we call the protection chain. We ensure that transport is safe, that the family departs together, that they carry their documentations and their safety plans. We want them to feel that they are not just leaving a camp. They have the tools in hand to navigate the world outside it.
That's a very comprehensive process, Jeyana. However, there are different groups. Women, children, youth, they all have different needs and very different risks. How does your work account for that?
For youth, they are standing on the edge of adulthood in a world that has been profoundly disrupted by displacement. For this group, we focus on vocational training and critically community leadership. We involve them in what we call youth clubs, spaces where they lead initiatives and take responsibility for their peers. This gives them back a sense of control and purpose. When they leave the camp, they are not going as a passive recipient of aid. They are going as people who know how to organize, advocate, and make difference. And for women, many of whom are the sole providers for their family, many of whom are survivors of violence. The challenges are legal and economic as much as psychological. For them, intensive case management is central, securing legal documents, connecting them to vocational programs, ensuring they have a voice in the transition process. We want every woman who lives to understand her rights and have the tool to navigate life outside the camp independently. We are tailoring the exit plan to make sure every individual is safe, prepared, and genuinely ready to move forward.
Kim, clearly this work is not just about the individuals leaving the camps. It is also about the community they return to. What is the role of host communities in the reintegration process?
That's a really important point, and one that is often overlooked. From our experience, especially in cases of internal displacement, returnees are not always fully accepted. In some situations, they may be perceived negatively or viewed with suspicion, which creates additional barriers to reintegration, especially when it comes to return of families of former ISIS fighters. This means that even if individuals are well prepared, they may still struggle to reintegrate due to social stigma or lack of acceptance. So it's very important to address this gap by engaging with communities through awareness, dialogue, service provision, and trust-building initiatives. Because reintegration is not a one-sided process, it requires readiness, understanding, and support from both the individuals and the community they return to.
Jeyana, drawing on your experience working closely with people in the camps, what has been the most difficult part of the work? How do you address it?
To be honest, the hardest part isn't just the long hours of the logistics, it's the vicarious trauma. Hearing the heartbreaking stories of the families we serve every single day can lead to profound burnout. It is heavy work, but in those moments, we ground ourselves in our humanitarian principles. We remind ourselves of the importance of maintaining professional boundaries and, above all, the necessity of resilience. We have to stay strong so we can lead those families to safety. But let me share a story that captures both the hardest and the most meaningful parts of what we do. We had a case involving a young child under our care who was suffering from severe life-threatening illness. The doctor's diagnosis was chilling. If this child didn't reach a specialized hospital in a different government within 3 days, we would lose him. In that moment, Salam for Hope moved as one. It wasn't just the program team. Logistics, finance, everyone worked at lightning speed to clear the path. We put immense pressure on partner organizations and authorities to secure the necessary approvals and transport immediately. We refused to accept no for an answer. We got him there. He received the treatment he needed and returned to us fully recovered. I will never forget the feeling in our office when we knew his life was saved. Seeing the joy on his family's faces and the pride in our team. It is indescribable. Moments like that are why we remain resilient. It gives us a sense of life too. It reminds us that even in the hardest conditions, this work matters.
I think what moves me the most about the story is not just that it worked, it's what is required. I think that says everything about what sustains people in this work. Kim, pre-departure support does not happen in isolation. It requires governments, international agencies, local partners, donors, all moving in the same direction at the same time. What are the structural obstacles that make this harder than it needs to be?
Pre-departure support is absolutely not something that can be delivered by one actor alone. It requires strong coordination across multiple stakeholders, humanitarian organizations, local partners like Salam for Hope, camp and administrations, international agencies, and the governments of the countries to which people will return. But coordination itself is one of the biggest challenges. Each actor operates within different mandates, different priorities, and different timelines. Bringing all of these together is really difficult, and the gaps between actors are often where the most vulnerable people fall through. There are also political sensitivities, especially around repatriation process. Decisions about return are often influenced by broader political considerations, which can slow down or complicate operations. Funding is another major constraint. This program requires sustained, long-term investment, but funding is often short-term and limited. In addition, there are legal and administrative issues, such as documentation, identity verification, and approval procedures, which can delay departure and create uncertainty for families. So overall, while the system exists, the real challenge is bringing all these elements into coherent and effective process.
So Kim, clearly, there are obstacles, but what does getting this right require? What is the minimum that governments, donors, and the international community must commit to if pre-departure support is going to translate into sustainable reintegration?
I think getting this right requires a fundamental shift in perspective, seeing pre-departure support not as a standalone activity, but as the first phase of much a longer reintegration journey. The first requirement is sustained and flexible funding without predictable resources. Organization can't maintain to the continuity and quality of the support that this work demands. A 12-month grant is not enough. The relationship, the program cycle, the community trust, none of it can be built in 12 months. The second one is a real political commitment. Governments play a central role in enabling repatriation and reintegration, and without their activity, sustained engagement process will remain limited no matter how good the programming on the ground is. We also need clear and efficient legal and administrative frameworks. People shouldn't be prevented from returning to their countries because of documentation delays or bureaucratic procedures that are within government's power to fix. This is a political choice, not a technical issue. Maybe the most important point is this: support must not stop the moment someone leaves a camp. Pre-departure is only the beginning. There must be continued support after arrival, in receiving communities, in families, in schools, in economic pathways, to ensure that reintegration is sustainable and not just symbolic. In the end, success depends on addressing the entire journey, not just point of departure. The camp is not the problem to be solved. It is the starting point for a solution that has to be built, sustained, and founded all the way to the end.
Kim and Jeyana, what you have described today is work that is extraordinary. Thank you for sharing rich insights.
Muna, thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Muna, for having me.
To our listeners, in our next episode, we go one step further along the journey into the legal and administrative processes of rehabilitation and reintegration. It is more human than you might expect. Until then, find Turning Points on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Subscribe and share. See you next time.